I'm Amy from Mere Wellness, and this video is going to be me moving through some of the exercises that I frequently give my clients. I've been asked to do some videos where I don't just instruct, but I actually go through the exercises with you so that you can follow along and do them with me. There's a big difference between regular stretching and exercising compared to my recommendations that are more based on the principles of myofascial release. You often have to hold those exercises a little bit longer, and you really have to be paying attention to your body and feeling the release. Now, when you do your exercises, I often recommend that people start with the calf stretches. That way, when you go to do the squats or anything else, it's a little easier to do. Most people that I run into have pretty tight calves because we sit a lot, and when we do a lot of walking or running or exercising, it's often on very flat surfaces. So we don't get a lot of play in our foot muscles and joints, our ankles and our calves. So let's start with the calf stretch. I'm going to start with my right foot, and you can start with that foot as well. I like to put it pretty much on the edge of whatever I'm using to stretch. You can use a half roll like this, or you can use a telephone book or anything that's about 2 or maybe 3 inches high, depending on how tight your calves are. A rolled up yoga mat tends to work really well too, or even a rolled up towel. Roll it up real tight and use that. So the ball of the foot goes up on, and you need to make sure that you're in good alignment. So the long bones of the feet point straight forward. Both hips are pointing straight forward as well. And then your back foot, you decide where that needs to go. And I suggest you start back here, lean into it a little bit, and decide how far you can bring that foot up before you start to feel the tension in your right calf. Once you get that foot where it needs to be, then center your body between the 2 feet. Don't lean too far over to one or over to the other. Nice in the center. Both feet pointing straight forward. Your hips about hip width apart. Because remember that this stretch is mimicking walking. So we should be able to easily walk the foot forward. And now don't do that if your calves are tight, but I do this stretch all the time. So my calves aren't that tight. So we're mimicking walking, and so we want to make sure that as we swing through at a normal motion, we're not going to create a lot of tension through our bodies because our calves are so tight. Okay, so once you're in your stretch, and we've been in it for about 30 seconds or so now, I recommend you either set a timer on your phone and have that nearby, or maybe you're doing it during a commercial on TV. I think the best way to sort of follow along or time yourself and make sure that you're doing it for a long enough period is to count your breaths. So look at the clock and count your breaths and how many long, slow belly breaths fit into either 30 seconds or a minute. And I know that for me, if I slow my breath down, I can fit about 4 breaths into a 30-second time period if I'm breathing about that pace, which when you're doing your stretches, you want a nice, deep, slow, long exhale belly breath because that helps to soften the muscles. So you can count your breaths, you can set a timer, but breathing, of course, is very good, so I recommend that. So we've been stretching now for about a minute. The other thing you can do is just pay close attention to your calf and how it feels. And so if you feel a lot of tension in the calf and then all of a sudden that tension starts to dissipate, then inch it forward. And you can do this stretch pretty much as long as you want to. As long as you're going at it very slowly and you're not forcing and pushing into that stretch, you could keep working and keep working and keep working on this. I recommend that you do this stretch every time you think about it during the day. I don't think you can do it too much. Put your half roll or something you can put your foot on if you have a standing workstation at work. If you have an opportunity in your day, if you don't have a standing workstation but you have an opportunity to stand and read something, then have something you can stretch your calves on. I keep one near my kitchen, so if I'm going to stand there and prepare dinner, chopping vegetables or something, I stretch my calves in the kitchen. If you are shaving in the morning or brushing your teeth, you can stretch in the bathroom. Any time is a good time to stretch your calves. Okay, so I'll frequently go through just a few minutes and continue to pull that other foot forward as I do it. If I have plenty of time because I'm on Netflix or something and watching TV, then I'll just keep going. I'm going to go ahead and back off because we've been on here for a couple minutes now. Now I'm going to turn my toes in, but I'm still going to have my hips facing forward and the long bones in this foot coming straight forward too. So I've shifted the stretch a little bit. This time I'm just going to breathe. I'm going to breathe for 8 breaths. You can already feel it starting to let go a little bit. So if your calves are really tight, they won't let go at 30 seconds. You'll have to keep going. Keep breathing. It could take a minute, it could take 2 minutes before it starts to soften. But since mine is already softening, I'm going to go ahead and inch forward just a little bit because I can feel quite a bit of pull in the back of my calf. And I feel a little bit on the outside and a little bit actually on the inside, about halfway up. And so your stretch, your tension may not be where my tension is because we're all so different. So why is it important to stretch at the angle here? Because if you're walking along and you decide to turn or you step on a rock and your foot slips sideways, then you want your calves to be able to handle that different motion. Kind of watching the clock as I do this too. I don't have my timer set. Okay, I can feel it starting to lengthen again. So I could either step forward again or just inch on this one because I can feel some tension here. Usually when I'm doing the calf stretch, I'm doing the foot straight forward. And then if I have extra time, I'll do the arc. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and step back. Just feel that a little bit. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn my heel in, my toes out, hips forward. I can step it quite a ways through on this one. Again, keeping the weight of my body in the center between my feet rather than on one or the other. And I feel this stretch more right in through my heel, and I can even feel it up above on the inside of my knee a little bit even. It's okay to peek down and make sure that your foot hasn't snuck out of alignment, because mine will occasionally do that a little teeny bit and have to pull it back in, but a lot of the clients I work with, they sneak out really regularly. So just keep an eye on yourself. Now we're always taught, there, I really let go there now, so I'm going to sneak ahead a little bit more. We're frequently taught that we have to do the same number of repetitions on one side as we do on the other, or hold a stretch for the same amount on one side as you do on the other. I don't necessarily agree with that. I do think you should do both sides so you create symmetry in your body, and both sides of your body probably need to be stretched. But one side might be tighter for other reasons, and so holding the stretch should be about what you're feeling and not about anything external, about time or repetitions. So I'm going to go ahead and bring that up. Always go in and out super slow, super slow. scooch this over a little bit farther. I'm going to start with my left. Sorry. Looking outside the window. Something going on. Okay, so finding your spot. Now on this side, I could go ahead and do exactly what we did on the other side, but I will frequently pair up another exercise while I'm doing my calf stretches. So I can feel the tension right about here. So this side's a little bit tighter than my other side, so I may want to hold it a little bit longer. Now, because the fascial system is all interconnected, you can actually intensify the stretch by pulling your arms out or up. So pay attention if you do decide to pair up or stack your exercises, that you're paying attention that you're not intensifying the stretch too much. So I like to do my shoulder stretch with this. It's an easy thing to add in. And with the shoulder stretch, you can really do it a couple different ways. I'm just going to do this so I don't run into it. You can, and the shoulder stretch is about, a lot of clients' arms will hang forward, and I see the backs of their hands. The arms should hang in line with the body, and your middle finger kind of in the center of your leg, or where your pant seam would be. So trying to externally rotate the shoulder rather than that internal rotation, and looking at the clavicles or the collarbones, but they're not, some are internally rotated and so tight through the neck that they're actually in a V. So look at your clavicles and see where they are, and work on bringing them down. So the shoulder exercise is really about externally rotating and bringing them back and down as much as you can. And then for people who are typing a lot, adding in the wrist and the finger extension as well. And have to make sure that you don't go too far on this as well. You want to go just to where you start to feel the tension and hold and breathe. And if you're working on alignment, you can use repetition, repetition, repetition to start retraining the brain on where the arms should land and the external rotation in the shoulder. If you're really working on stretching, then go into that external rotation, add in your extension at the wrist. On my left side, I can go quite a bit further than I can do on my right. So I'm just going to hold them here for a little bit. I can feel almost no tension in my calf anymore, so I'm going to pull that forward a little bit more, quite a bit more. And hold that. And breathe. And if you're paying attention to both your calf and your arm, just waiting to see when things dissipate. If you, with where the nerves are in the arms, if you start to feel a little bit tingly in your hands, then maybe you want to bring your hands forward or relax your fingers a little bit more and just work on the shoulders, and maybe add the hands back in when your tingling goes away. The number one is if you aren't going to use them, don't squeeze them, keep them relaxed. Other things you can notice when you're doing these stretches is begin to notice if you have any holding patterns in your body. Are you holding anything unnecessarily tight that doesn't need to be? Your face, your jaw, your stomach, your butt muscles, your thigh muscles. Anything that doesn't need to be tight, don't hold it tight. Holding things tight prevents blood flow. Okay, I'm going to bring this in. I'm a little tingly. But always try to bring it in good alignment. Okay, the calf feels pretty good. I'm going to bring it a little bit farther forward. And again, you may not be anywhere close to this yet. Don't push it. Respect your body where it's at, and just keep working on it. And if you work on this continually, you'll be surprised at how quickly you can create more range of motion in your in your calves. Slowly step out of this. And put my toe in, calf down, sneak that other foot into good alignment with the hips, good alignment with the feet. It feels pretty good right there for me. Okay, so I could go back to my shoulder stretch. If I've done my shoulder stretch a little bit and I feel like my arms are hanging pretty well, then I might do the bubble. Okay, the bubble exercise is imagining there's a bubble outside of the range of your fingertips, and you're stretching out as far as you can to paint the inside of that bubble with your fingertips. Now, if you have a lot of internal rotation and your arms hang like this, it's not really a great idea to do a lot of the bubble stretch. If you want to do it because it's a fun little stretch and it feels good, make sure you have your thumb turned out, because that helps to bring the shoulder bone into external rotation, and there's a lot of things that can get caught in these little joints up here, so being careful with that. So I'm going to paint this bubble. I'm going to paint it green because green's my favorite color, and I'm going to move through this range of motion. More going on outside my window. Must be getting close to time to pick the kids up from school. So I'm going to paint it this way, and this way, and this way. And paint the bubble exercise. Make sure to check in with your calf. I'm going to sneak ahead just a little bit. Takes the shoulder joints through all the different potential range of motion that we have available to us, which we don't do probably most days. And keeping our joints, our muscles, and our fascia healthy, we need to be moving through different ranges of motion. Okay, that feels pretty good. Okay, I'm going to turn it out. Get my hips square, step on forward. I can't go quite as far in this one today. Every day is different. So I might do the paint the bubble again. And this time I'm going to paint the bubble with my hands together, because you get a little bit more rib cage involvement, a little bit different motions, even down to the hips. I'm trying to keep the hips fairly still because you're wanting to focus on your calf too. Paint as much of the bubble as you can. You can feel it in my neck as well. Okay, feels like I can sneak ahead. And I'll just breathe for the last 30 seconds here. I'm going to take that back. I'm going to go another 30 seconds. I'm going to give you one more thing you can do while you're doing your calf stretches, and that is working on the head. And I'm going to turn my stretch here. We're always looking for a nice plumb line from the ankles, the hips, shoulders, and the ear. And a lot of people have trouble bringing that ear back, and if they do, the ribs come with it. So trying to keep the ribs down and continually working on bringing as if you're sliding the base of your skull up and lengthening this space. I get a lot of questions about the hump, and that my mom has that hump or my grandma has that hump. Well, the hump, you just need to bring those shoulders back and externally rotate, and then bring the head back and up and get that stacked spine that we were meant to have, that we were created for. Okay, I'm going to come out of that. So once you've stretched your calves, it's a heck of a lot easier to do the squat. So I often recommend the squat because I'm typically first recommending it to start to retrain alignment, to try teaching your body that this is what good alignment is. So teaching people to get their feet under their hips and their long bones of their feet pointing straight ahead, and pulling their knees so that when the knees bend, they move in line with the feet. So often I see when people bring their feet in good alignment, their knees tend to point inward. And it's very tough to connect that with your brain if you're used to this most of your life, or this even. So do this in front of a mirror if this is something that's new to you and you need a visual cue to make sure you're getting it right. In front of a mirror is far better than constantly bending over and watching your own feet, because you want to train your body to be upright too, because we're training that curve. So when you're doing your squat, you're not going very deep at first. You're focusing on repetition and alignment to start getting this motion, because if your body moves well in good alignment, it's going to function a lot better for you when you need it to go out of alignment. Okay, so as I'm bending or as I'm squatting, little teensy squats, then my feet are staying stable, my knees are staying fairly stable, they're barely coming over my feet at all. Most of the motion's happening back here. So I'm just going up and down. You can slide your hands up and down, your thighs too, if that's another tactile cue to help make sure your knees are being fairly stable rather than going in. Okay, I'm going to turn to the side. And I recommend that you do several in a row. Initially I like a target of 100 a day, and not all at the same time. So a few here, a few there, whenever you can sneak a few in. And we're leading with the butt, leading with the tailbone, so that we get used to building this low back curve. And if you have been a tucker for a long time, rebuilding that low back curve is a process, and people will frequently then get some tension in their low back from making those muscles work again. I have no idea how many we're up to. So other things to think about while we're doing these is you can add in your shoulders, keeping them externally rotated as you go up and down. You could add in when you come up, bring the back of the head up, tuck the chin just a teensy bit, because what we're always trying to achieve, the way our skull is meant to be stacked on our spine, is the eye and the base of the skull should be level. And most of us are like tipped way back. Okay, got off there for a second. Repetition, repetition, repetition. Now once you get a little bit better at your squats and you can go a little bit deeper, you're thinking about keeping your weight mostly in your heels. The balls of the feet are still grounded, but they're not taking weight. They're helping you with balance. So you can take it a little bit deeper, and you'll feel different pulls in your knees and your ankles if you're not used to this alignment. And squats are good for many reasons. They, of course, work the bigger muscle groups. You've got lymph nodes in your crease here, plus in your abdomen and up by your diaphragm. And the lymph, of course, works on pressures, change of pressure in your body. So doing a squat really helps to make the lymph flow. It's another way to keep your pelvic floor in good tone. If you're my age or older and you're experiencing some of the things that women experience when you sneeze and cough, squats are a good way to both stretch and strengthen your pelvic floor and bring those muscles into a more normal tone. Okay, that feels pretty good. It's quite a few squats. I have no idea how many we just did, but you can think about doing them for a couple minutes. You don't have to do very many at a time. Okay, so another stretch that I like to do on a fairly regular basis is the hamstring stretch. And having a chair, a countertop is one of the best ways to do it. I like to start with my hamstring stretch with my hips right underneath my, or my feet right underneath my hips. And I'm back a little bit away from the chair, but my weight is still in my heels. And then I'm finding my curve, and I'm almost over-exaggerating that curve because I want to make sure that hamstring that crosses this joint and my knees is in full stretch. And I always want to, when I do my stretching, I always want to do it in best possible alignment. So I'm teaching my muscles to stretch in good alignment. So I'm also making sure that my knees are forward. So if I did bend them, they would move in alignment with the long bones of my feet. Once I'm here, I'm again finding that just right stretch, and I'm going to hold it. I'm going to breathe. You can think too about softening your other muscles, your face and shoulders, your jaw, your belly, your thighs. Unless you need your thighs to rotate your knees forward, let them go. Okay, I can feel it starting to let go a little bit, and I can feel my upper body just sinking down. And you should never go, so if you go far enough that you lose your curve, you've gone too far. So respect the curve. Okay, I can feel myself sinking down a little bit farther. Those deep belly breaths really help. And when you come out of your lengthening, always try to just bend your knees a little bit and let the muscle shorten a little, and then help yourself back up. Never make that muscle work really hard right away. You can also do the hamstring stretch with a little bit wider stance. Your feet, your knees should move in the direction of the long bone of your feet. So don't take such wide of a stance and turn your feet really far out if your knees can't bend in that direction as well. So I'm going to go right about here. And again, I'm going to find my low back curve. Get the weight in the heels. I'm going to soften my shoulders. Soften my belly and my thighs. And breathe. And when you come out of your stretch, bend the knees and come back up. Sometimes I will go right from that stretch into stretching the inner thigh muscles. So I'll turn a little bit sideways so you can see that. So I'll take a little bit wider stance. Again, don't go so far out that you can't bend the knee over the foot. So I'll go into my hamstring stretch, and then I'll bend a knee. We'll go this side first. Trying to go over the long bones and shifting your weight onto that foot so that you're stretching the inner thigh of the other foot. And again, trying to keep the low back curve. Softening your shoulders, your jaw, your hips, your belly, your thighs as much as you can. Paying attention to what you're holding. It might be a little trickier to hold this stretch very long because you're really using some strength in this leg to hold it. If you need a little more to hold on to keep the stretch going, you can put a little bit more into your arms. Continuing to breathe. And you can feel a little bit of lengthening going on. So I'm going to take it a little bit deeper. And just go as long as you can. Slowly push rather than pull yourself back up, and we'll shift it to the other side. Okay, so once you're in, soften everything and breathe. Check your curve. Starting to soften, so I'm going to go a little bit farther. Slowly going to come out, bring myself back up, and feels pretty good. So when you stretch the fascia, the muscles come right along with it. But if you just stretch quickly and you're bouncing when you stretch, you may get some muscle lengthening, but it's going to be temporary, because if the fascia's tight, the fascia rules. So I hope you feel good as well, and replay this as many times as you want to have somebody or something to take you to the stretches, and you can always turn the audio down if you don't want to hear all the tips again. So thank you, and if you have any questions, marewellness.com or email me at marewellness@gmail.com. Thank you.